Hi, my name is Jonah Beer. I'm the Amish Matthew Kaner. Welcome to Tasting... I'm sorry, you don't like that one? I thought that would be the way to introduce tasting notes. I thought today we would take a look at two styles of Barolo that are very common, produced around all parts of Barolo, the traditionalist style and the modernist style. And look, first thing we need to start in is not everything fits conveniently into these two camps, so there's a lot of people have learned to merge those worlds. But we're gonna take a look at two producers on the far ends of the spectrum, just so we can get an idea as to which ones they are. And it's all Nebbiolo grapes, and it's all grown in the Piemonte region of northern Italy. Each one is 100% Nebbiolo, and each one has to follow the same regiments of aging in wood and aging in bottle. But that's really where some of the differences start to shine. In the case of the traditionalists, they're using large 52 hectoliter, 100 hectoliter oak casks, typically Slovenian oak casks, versus aging as the modernists do in more French oak barrique. So when you age in smaller French oak barrique, you're gonna get a little more of the oak flavor. That's one of the differences, but then there's things like using roto fermenters for fermentation, which are fermentation techniques that are designed to draw out more extraction from the Nebbiolo. And then there are things like what glass do you bottle into? And probably one of the only visual indicators that's a bit of a rule of thumb is if the producer uses what's called Albesa glass, this type of bottle printed with Albesa all around it, which is the name of the glass manufacturer, this typically signifies more of a traditionalist, versus a Bordeaux-shaped or claret-shaped bottle typically can indicate a little bit more of a modernist. So the styles tend to fall between classic Nebbiolo, which is gonna have a little lighter in color. It's gonna have a little more dried rose and tar and that sort of thing, versus a little more power and a little more weight in the modernist style, typically derived from the barrel itself. Both are gonna have the classic markers of Nebbiolo, high acid and high tannin. So you can count on both of those it coming through in shining colors for both. The two producers that we have today, well, we're going with one of the classics from the modernist movement. And this is Elio Altare, famously known for cutting up their large casks to remove them from the cellar to make room for some more barrique. Elio Altare is wonderful wine that makes 5 or 6 different Barolos. This particular one we have today is a blend of several different communes. On the traditionalist side, we're going with a bit of a unicorn wine. This is Bricco Molea. Bricco Molea is from Massimo Martinelli. He was the winemaker for 42 years at Renato Ratti. Everyone knows that Ratti, along with people like Barolo Mascarello, are like the stalwarts of the old traditionalist style. In fact, he and his uncle, Renato Ratti, started the Barolo Museum, which he still curates today. This guy, Massimo, is like one of the great raconteurs, like he's an artist and a poet. And look, just because he's a traditionalist doesn't mean he's afraid of your iPhone, right? Like he knows, like technology's not a sin and it's not a negative. It's what does it do to the tradition and the history of Barolo? And that's his argument, and typically the argument of the traditionalists. These guys will tell you that the techniques that they're employing are coaxing out more interest, more layers, and more flavor out of the Nebbiolo, and therefore there's nothing wrong with it, and these guys will say keeping tradition alive is a big part of it. No one's right or wrong. It definitely comes down to your preference. You know what? We're gonna start with the Elio Altare. Both are 2015 vintage. Elio Altare, this one is, like I mentioned, a blend from several different communes. Definitely got the French oak barrique. It's shorter time on the skins. So traditional for Nebbiolo, for Barolo, is to macerate both during fermentation and post-fermentation for about 30 days. These guys do it a little bit shorter. You'd think that longer maceration is gonna give you darker color and more extraction. It can kind of work the opposite. Macerating a recently fermented wine, high alcohol and high temperatures on the skins, tends to reduce color and remove pigment. So you often see that a wine with less time on the skins actually has a little darker, more purpled kind of color to it, which is also then enhanced by the addition of the oak and the barrique. And yeah, I mean, look, the first thing that we might note right now is that 2015, hey, this is infanticide. What are you doing? You gotta let these things age more. And that is true. Look, man, the tannins can be rough and the tannins can be a bit aggressive, but that's a part of the charm of Barolo. One thing that you can say about the modernist style, it tends to tame some of the kind of more linear, crunchy tannins. So you're gonna get right off there that kind of red raspberry, a little bit of a cranberry, red rose petal. There's a bit of kind of like a dried potpourri kind of leafiness to Nebbiolo from Barolo. Since he's blending from different communes, we can't really identify if this is Serralunga or La Mora, but you can really immediately pick out that this is Barolo and not Barbaresco. Just a little bit of cherry pit, but then there's a little plushness to it, right? And here's where the addition of that kind of barrique starts to show up. There's a bit of a roundness, a plumpness to the wine, and just the tiniest bit hint of vanilla. There's a little generosity to it, right? Young Barolo is typically never described as being generous, and that's what this style tends to give you. A bit more roundness, a bit more plush, a bit more lush. And here we're starting to really get into kind of the sweet sensation of the oak itself, a little bit of the kind of textural creaminess that can come from that oak. This is where these guys tend to start to win their arguments, you know, for why the addition of this modernist style is appealing. And you can see right away, I mean, this wine's fantastic, and it's not showing the heat, it's not showing alcohol, and it's not showing sweetness, which is sometimes in a really hot year in Barolo, you can find a little more of that kind of new worldification of Barolo. But this is just pristine and precise. And a bit more of a mouthful of wine, right? A little more top to bottom kind of depth to it. If we take a look now at Massimo Martinelli's Bricco Molea, this one is interesting because, I mean, this guy literally came out of retirement to make wine again because his wife was tired of him around the house. The guy's a poet and a painter, lives in Doliani, which is kind of on the very south of Piemonte, where he grows some dolcetto. He uses very traditional approach here, right? So there's no roto-fermenters. It's all done in stainless steel and concrete for fermentation, natural yeast and native, and then goes into a large 52 hectoliter Slovenian oak botti. All those things, they tend to make the wine feel a little leaner, give it a little more of a svelte, chiseled kind of edge to it. And the name of this particular wine, Il Barolo come lo sento io, which is Barolo as I know it. The guy literally wrote a book on Barolo for his 42 years of working with his uncle, which is a great book. And he smokes a lot of cigars, and he drinks a lot. Like, he once bragged to me that he had more antibodies in his body than Angelo Gaia because he drank one more bottle per day than Angelo Gaia. So we're gonna open up Bricco Molea by Massimo Martinelli. So you got the Albesa glass. Albesa glass goes back to a traditional shape that was a part of the region back when all the bottles were handmade. Few manufacturers make it, but you actually have to qualify to use the Albesa glass. And I haven't been yet, but they tell me the best tasting in all of Italy is when Albesa Glass annually does a tasting where they open every bottle that's made and bottled in their glass. And apparently, if you can get a ticket to this thing, it's like the greatest Barolo tasting. All right, let's have a little traditionalist style Barolo from La Mora. So right away, you can see coming out, like the color, there's a bit more of a brickish kind of color to it. It's translucent, it's lighter. This is the Pinot Noir element of Nebbiolo. And quite honestly, when we started True North Wine Merchants, our import company, it was because we loved Barolo and we love Burgundy. And the two regions have a ton in common. Like the MGA, the cruise system that they use in Barolo, is modeled off of what they do in Burgundy. So there's a lot of similarities between Great Burgundy and Great Barolo. So right on the nose, everything that's the same fruits, that cranberry, that raspberry, a little bit of that cherry and cherry pit, maybe even a little cherry stem, but everything gets a little bit dried, gets a little bit underripe, where some of those fruits can tend to hit, very ripe to like heading towards the overripe stage. Here you're starting to see all of those things kind of really in that kind of more tart, underripe kind of quality. And then that wild strawberry, that kind of like, not the big Trader Joe's strawberries, the Whole Foods ones, but the ones that like the Fragola de Bosca, they call it in Barolo, the wild strawberries of the woods. Nothing on the oak side. You're really not picking up anything other than the fact that it has gone through élevage. You're feeling like an aging of the wine, but nothing that's oak oriented. So just take everything that the Altare had and stretch it out longer. It doesn't get as high, it's not as plump, it's not as rounded, but it makes up for all that with its extraordinary length. It's still tasting it right now. This is what the traditionalists will point to, the ability to take Nebbiolo, which is a pretty thin skin and a pretty big berry, and coax out this amazing length and tension. There's a nervous energy or a verve to this wine, and the old timers will tell you that it's because of aging in these large casks. By not putting too much makeup and perfume on it with small barrique or short maceration times to draw out fruitiness, but to allow it to stay dried cherry and potpourri and cranberry, it's on the palate. The nose feels a little muted. Like when you open up some of these traditionalist style like this, or a Barolo Mascarello, or some of the kind of old school guys, you really get, at first the nose, you kind of are like going, God, is it muted? Like what's happening? It feels attenuated. It takes a minute to open up, but the first time it hits your palate, high tannin, high acid's gonna tip you off that you've got an old school style Barolo. Length, man, and look, it's savory. It gets drying on the tannins hit, like right now, you know, and you have a hard time smiling and opening your mouth very wide. But that is the joy of it, right? And that's what Nebbiolo is. Drawn out, lengthy, high acid, high tannin, lots of driedness to it. There's a bit of like a herbal, kind of like a bit of a dried savory herb quality to it as well. A little bit of a candied orange peel to it, which is just a beautiful element. These are both beautiful wines. You're not gonna go wrong with either one, right? More modern, having a little more roundness, a little more plump, a little more give and generosity. And then a traditional wine like Bricco Molea with the more lengthy, linear, drawn out kind of qualities. Both are exactly why I fucking love Barolo more than anything almost on this planet. You just can't get over the beauty that they coax out of these vineyards. We all know this. We got to go and check it out to really understand it. But if you go and spend time in some of these villages and you travel around, you meet the people and you drink the wines, you go to Centro Storico in Serralunga, you sit there, let those guys pick out the wine for you. You're gonna go through this journey and you'll see that there's a wide spectrum between the more modernist and the more traditionalist and a lot of in between. But in all cases, man, it's Barolo. And that's what I think we gotta love about both. This is why they call it the wine of kings and the king of wines, because this is it, man. I love it.